Welcome to the Health Sport Podcast, a podcast in which we discuss with athletes of all levels, health professionals, and key figures of the sport world. Before presenting this episode's guest, please consider sharing this with your friends and loved ones who could benefit from it. Also, I encourage you to subscribe to the show on whichever platform you're listening to. It helps the podcast grow. This episode's guest is pushing the limits of human endurance to raise awareness for mental health. An ultra-endurance cyclist, he is attempting multiple world records by riding extreme distances, using sport as a platform to break stigma and start real conversations around mental health. We discuss his journey, the physical and mental demands of ultra-endurance challenges, and why choosing to suffer publicly can help others feel less alone. Please welcome Dylan Pearce. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So for everyone, just so they know, the way we found out that I found you was while we were riding on Zwift, and I just saw a guy with his name was Dylan, and in brackets it was written "Ride for Mental Health," and I was riding with a friend, and I was like, "Oh, I need to write to him." So I opened Zwift Companion. I write to you, ask you a couple of questions. You send me Instagram. I read the articles, and from there I was like, I want him on the podcast, and you said yes. So thank you very much to have accepted the invite.
Oh, glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Yeah. You do a lot of ultra biking. You've been biking for a couple of years now. You do a very long distances. I want to know, after how many hours on the bike do you have the deepest and the most philosophical conversations with yourself?
It's a tough one because I find when you're riding distances like that, it's a little bit of a roller coaster. So you get a lot of high points and a lot of low points, and oddly enough, I'd say it's like more so throughout the day. So I find like during the night times, I love riding at night. So I just get this massive boost of energy. And then I find the same thing when you're riding into the sunrise and the sun comes up. Your circadian rhythm kind of kicks back in and you get a big boost of energy. And it's more like the later part of the afternoons, I find when you're deep in a ride and, you're getting tired, you're sore, you don't have much energy left, and especially mentally, that's kind of where you got to really tell yourself just to keep pushing. And I kind of tell myself, like if I can keep pushing and get past this little mental feat, that there will be another up, and where I will feel great and continue to keep going.
There's one rider from Quebec, Henry Do. And one of his documentary was saying, when you're doing ultra, for sure you're going to hit a wall during a race. Whatever you're doing, for sure you're going to hit a wall. How do you keep pushing through the walls?
For me, it's just, I'd say looking back and all the time and effort that I've put in to do some of these events and races, and just telling myself, I didn't do all of this hard work and all this effort just for nothing, to give up, and just keep telling myself, just gotta push through, and we can get through it, and things kind of carry on, and eventually that little mood boost will come around and help you out.
And how did you find the ultra biking? Were you doing cycling when you were younger?
No, so I didn't. I actually grew up playing hockey, and
A real Canadian.
Yeah, so I grew up playing hockey as a kid, and when I was 16, I got into refereeing hockey, and I actually enjoyed that a lot more. So I pursued that kind of as a sport, I'd say, and I wanted to see how far I could carry myself and my brother playing pretty competitive hockey in the OHL. Growing up, we always had a little side competition with each other who could make it the furthest in hockey. And so I always just pushed myself to see how far I could make it. And I did some pretty competitive hockey, reffing some local junior C and junior A hockey, university hockey, and then eventually having some tryout camps to the OHL. I guess, unfortunately, by that time, my interest kind of wasn't there as much. So he had won that little competition we had. But yeah, never growing up, like I hated cardio of any sort, whether it be running, swimming. So kind of the complete opposite to now, where cardio and cycling has really grown on me as a passion.
And how did you find cycling?
It's kind of a funny story, actually. So never really ridden a road bike, and I was just hanging out with one of my friends one day who happened to be moving, and he had this old 1996 KDEC CFR3 road bike sitting in his garage and was looking to sell it. And he offered me a good deal for it, and I took it out for a spin for 20 minutes or so. And needless to say, it was the most fun I had in quite some time. Once you pick up some speed, you get the adrenaline rush, and told him I'd buy it right there. And pretty much from there, kind of just rode the bike just for fun, for enjoyment purposes. And I had a few people at work at the time too that were into road cycling, so they had kind of gotten me into it a little more. And them being much stronger riders at the time really pushed me to get better, and kind of just really grew on me, and just seeing the progress and always wanting to see how far I could progress with it.
And how old were you when you bought the bike?
It's about 20, 26. So yeah, I grew up playing hockey and then reffing, and I did that for about 7 years. And then there was a good 3, maybe 4 year gap where I wasn't the most active person per se. And then, really just jumped into cycling. And just right from the start, really enjoyed the longer, slower rides. And it's never, I don't know, I guess I didn't really like to suffer very much physically, like in the short term, like short crits and shorter road races and stuff like that. But when it came to the longer, slower rides, for some reason, I really seemed to enjoy suffering more so mentally, I guess.
We're crazy to do long distance. And how your passion from biking and just doing long rides transformed to doing ultra rides?
So I had always, like I said, I guess I kind of became a little obsessed with pushing myself on the bike. And I guess the first 2 years was kind of just getting out and about and just enjoying my time. And then I had started doing some structured training, and for a year or two got into some swimming and running as well, and really loved running. Kind of just ran into a lot of injuries with the running, and as much as I did like it, I seemed to like cycling a lot more, because I didn't want to seem to sacrifice any time on the bike for runs. And so I had been the last year and a half, I'd say, just straightly dedicated to the bike. And after a lot of research online, listening to different podcasts, YouTubers, I've just been self-coaching myself the last year and a half, and have seen some pretty great improvements. And I've just been sticking with that the last little while. Got to the point where with my cycling club, so they have rides all throughout the week, the Barrie Cycling Club, and Tuesday nights is the big hard group rides, and they have different categories from D all the way up to A. And I remember the first ride I ever did with them, I was more of like a D, C kind of rider. And this last year, jumping up with the A's and keeping up with those guys and putting in some attacks. And I don't know, just become very strong over the last year and a half. And some of the guys at work are like, oh, like, you're getting pretty good at this. Why don't you try out a race? And I remember looking up a whole bunch of races that day at work and deciding, what kind of interested me. Did I want to do some road races, ultra, some shorter crit kind of stuff? And I've always loved the long distance stuff. And especially, towards the tail part of riding with, group rides or with other people, that was always where I felt the best. And oddly enough, where my legs always felt the most fresh. I guess maybe I'm a little slow to warm up and I take a few hours, but so I remember going into work the next day and I was like, hey, I signed up for a race. It's 540 kilometers long. And they all thought I was a little crazy for that. And, he was kind of like, oh, he's like, it's a little crazy, don't you think? I was thinking more like, 60, 80, 100 kilometers. And so I ended up doing that race, and it was called Race Across Quebec. And really greatly organized and run event. I was pretty surprised with how everything was organized, run, and another reason, I guess, to why I want to do it again this year. But I went and did that. It was my first ultra event, and wasn't expecting a lot. I mean, I trained a lot for it, and wasn't really sure how I was going to do, but I ended up coming first overall. And it was my longest ride to date at the time. And once I had finished that, I guess I kind of just got the itch to see how far we could push the limits.
Yeah. And what was the first distance that you completed and you were like, I couldn't believe I could be able to do this distance?
I would say, so like on the weekends, I would always have my long ride. So it would be pretty common to say do 100, 120K on Saturday and Sunday. And then I remember there was a few weekends where I'd push a little further, and I would have to say it was my first 200-kilometer ride. And just being able to hold, I guess, the pace I did at the time. So I think it was just over 30 kilometers an hour, 205 kilometers. And yeah, I remember looking back that day when I got back and was pretty proud of myself being able to do that. And it's kind of funny now that I look back at it thinking that, I was pretty proud in the moment, but looking back at my training last year, it was a lot of 180, 200K rides back to back on the weekends.
Oh, crap. Yeah, because I remember for me, I think the first 100K was like, oof, I can go that far while biking. After that, my first 200, I was with a group.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it's not cheating, but you have the pack vibe and you can draft a little bit and everything. After that, I did 267 and solo. And that was, after this one, I was like, okay, now I know what is the solo ultra now. But
Yeah.
it's such an amazing feeling when when you get passed through the wall and you come back alive at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I think I think a lot of people would be surprised with how far they can actually push, and I think a lot of it really just comes down to nutrition. So you're going to need some fuel if you're going that long, and just being able to know how to pace that sort of distance as well.
What's your favorite food to eat while you're on the bike?
I guess this last summer, so I do a lot of carbs in my bottles. So on like a long ride, I would aim for a lot just to try to get my stomach used to it for the long events. So I would kind of aim for 90 grams of carbs in the bottles. So a bottle an hour, and then some sort of solid food each hour as well. And I tend to like Rice Krispie Squares a lot. Those do well. And I don't know what they're called, the little like fruit oat bars.
Yeah.
Those are really good. And the odd time I'll bring a bag of candy with me as well. Candy is always a go-to for any cyclist, I feel.
What I was doing when I do long distance, usually maple cookies. That usually put a big smile on my face when I'm just eating one cookie, and I'm like, oh yes, I can go now for 5 more Ks.
Yeah.
I always, when you gotta feel right when you're doing such a long distance. It's crazy how you think, oh, doing ultras is just pushing through your limit and everything, but when your fuel is right, it's easier to get through the wall, I think.
Oh, 100%. Like that race across Quebec, I ended up running into some stomach issues the last few hours, to the point where I couldn't keep anything down, whether it was like liquid or solid. And I remember my power just dropping those last 4 hours because there was nothing for my body to run off of. And that compared to another ride I did over the summer, which was 825 kilometers, and just slightly changing up the fueling so my stomach was able to handle it all. And I remember, coming back to the end of the ride, and I was like, oh, like I probably could have gone further, kept going, and the power didn't drop. My power was consistent the entire 28 hours. So it really makes a huge difference whether you fuel right or not.
So, and this year you have a lot of distance to cover. And can you do the list of all the records you want to try?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've ever heard of WUCA, so the World Ultra Cycling Association. So they have their own set and list of cycling records. And within the last few years, they've partnered as well with Guinness World Records. And there's 2 on there that I wanted to tackle this year. So the first one I'm going to do is across Ontario. So that will end up being around just over 800 kilometers. And the second one is around Lake Ontario. And that was actually the 800K ride I did last year. So those are the 2 through WUCA. And the last one, which I think would be the most challenging, but the one I'm most looking forward to, is the fastest known time from the Canadian border to the Mexican border along the Pacific Coast Highway, so on the west coast of the States. And that one is 2,800 kilometers.
Gonna be on the bike for a while. What's the FTK for this distance?
For the 2,800? That's a good question, my friend. I'm a little undecided. So, like there's a couple options to beat the current fastest known time would be to aim around 8 days. So you'd be roughly around 350 kilometers a day. So my thought process is you just stick to that and you do 350 a day no matter how you're feeling. Or, if you're feeling good on a few of those days and you want to push further, hit 400, 450, do you keep pushing and get a little ahead? So still kind of thinking about how I want to tackle that one.
And what is your planning? Do you start with across Ontario, then then the Mexican border?
Yeah, so I'll start with across Ontario in May. And then in June, I'm going to do the Lake Ontario record attempt. The last one will be the Canada to Mexico, which I'm looking at doing in September when it's a little cooler. And in between those couple of months in July and August, I'll have 2 ultra races as well. So the one in July is called Michigami. So it's an ultra road race around Lake Michigan. And that one is 1,600 kilometers. And in August is Race Across Quebec. So last year I did the 500 kilometer option, and this year I opted for the 1,000 kilometer. They also do have I believe it was 2,500 kilometer. And I really wanted to do that one this year because of the route that they've chosen and going around the Gaspé Peninsula. And I partially backpacked. Well, I backpacked the peninsula, bike packed last summer, and it was some of the best riding I've ever done. And that's why the 2,500 really kind of drew attention to me, but I just didn't think there was going to be enough recovery time between that and the Canada to Mexico.
Yeah, you need some rest.
Yeah, it'll be a lot. Like basically your one sort of event or record attempt each month. And I find from these events, I'm usually, an easy week after, maybe 2, kind of depending on circumstances. And then that kind of just leaves you 2 weeks to prep for the next event. So it'll be a lot, but I think as long as I recover well and listen to my body, I'll be able to do it all.
And across Ontario, is it east to west or west to east?
So for that one, you have to follow their start. Basically, you have to follow their starting point and their finish point, but you're able to make whatever route in between that you want. So you have to start at Parliament Hill in Ottawa and end at City Hall in Windsor. So I've still got to put together a couple routes and see what makes most sense, because you got to have some logic behind it as well. There might be some routes that are shorter but have more elevation, or does it make sense to take a bit of a longer route but flatter? So we'll have to figure that out. That's actually within the next month was kind of my plan.
What I've heard about Ontario is that there's a lot of woods. So going across Ontario, it won't be. You're not going by Toronto, right?
No, so I think I'd be going, cutting across a little more north, just because it gets so busy around the city. Just to keep it to be a little more safe and a little quicker as well. But I mean, compared to Quebec, it's the whole province is pretty flat here.
And which record attempt you're the most excited about?
I think I'm most excited to take on the Canada to Mexico one. I think mostly because it's such a big challenge in my mind, both physically and mentally. It'll be kind of the most distance I've ridden in 8 days. So it'll be hard mentally, physically, and there'll be all new roads. The person who actually has the current fastest known time, I don't know if you may have heard of him, the vegan cyclist, Dylan Pearce. So he's on YouTube as well, and he documented each of his days 2 summers ago when he did it. And it's always kind of been on my bucket list since I've seen his videos, because the scenery along with it just looks absolutely amazing. And I think, along with the scenery and something so challenging is a great goal for me to push for.
Do you find this challenge, this one particularly, more like an adventure rather than a record attempt?
Yeah, I think it would be a little more of an adventure. Like, so the other 2 record attempts, because they partner with the World Guinness records, they have to be officiated as well. So essentially I would have a support car following behind me with 2 officials inside, just making sure I'm following the rules, not breaking any rules. And you can do it supported as well. So it all counts as kind of the same record. So might as well do it supported and have another person in there to hand me bottles, food, or help with any mechanicals. Whereas the Canada to Mexico on the FKT website, I'll be going for the unsupported record. And they have a whole set of guidelines of what you can't do for unsupported. So really it'll just be me, my bike, my big saddlebag on the back, and trying to push through each and every day, even accepting help from other people on the road or another rider riding beside you. They count that as supported.
And I can hear everyone listening right now to the episode and say, like, you must be crazy for doing this. So why are you doing this?
I'm doing this all. Basically, cycling has really helped me with my mental health as well. So in the past, I had some pretty tough mental health struggles. And when I did get into cycling, I kind of realized how much purpose and structure kind of brought back into my life, along with discipline. And I've been able to use those things in not just the cycling aspect, but in all other parts of my life as well. And this last, in October, I launched a campaign called Ride Beyond Limits with the slogan, breaking records to break stigma. And because cycling has helped me so much with my mental health, I decided to launch this campaign to try and raise awareness and funds for the Canadian Mental Health Association. And I thought to myself personally, there would be no better way to do this than if I could do it through cycling.
And are you comfortable sharing what were your darkest times?
There's definitely been some dark times, and there's been a few points as well in my life in the past where I guess you could say, like, it kind of got to a point that things were so rough that I didn't want to be here anymore. And there was a lot of different things I kind of did to help me get out of that rut and become the person I am today. So, like, aside from cycling, I did a lot of therapy and counseling, and I went through a couple different outpatient programs. And, I think why I wanted to help raise money for the Canadian Mental Health Association is because they have so many great resources out there on their website, whether it be different courses and programs to try and get people back on their feet, or even just a whole bunch of PDFs on how to help and deal with depression, anxiety, stress, a whole bunch of different things.
Was it something that, as a man, you find out really difficult to pass through these situations?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like the biggest part of it, especially for men, is they kind of just hold it all in, and they feel like, maybe they'll be weak or not heard if they speak out. And I've always urged to anybody I know that's needed help in the past is talking about it, and just, searching for that help really helps. Like, even just talking to someone about it I don't think people can realize how much of a weight it can really lift off of your shoulder. So I think there's a lot of stigma built around it, and I think people are just afraid to reach out and look for help.
And if I'm right, as you said, the Canadian Mental Health Association, there's free resources on their website.
Correct. Yeah, they have some different resources on their website. So they have different PDFs or files you can download to read over, whether you're dealing with all sorts of things: depression, anxiety, stress, PTSD. They have lines you can reach out to if you're in crisis. They have a whole bunch of other information on just how you can get help depending what you're needing.
And if you're in Canada, you have all the phone lines and everything. But if you're not in Canada, at least you have some PDFs if ever there's none from your country, wherever you are in the world. I think that's one of the beauty of the podcasts in English, as we are doing. We're both Canadian. It's just if you would have been in Europe, I would have seen you on Zwift and write to you. But I think it's just like there's no frontier now. So all the resources are there, and if you need help, there's always places you can look for. Your training for all those records attempts, how's your training look like?
So pretty much following the same training that I did last year, because it ended up working so well for me. And the idea is to look at a reverse periodization. So quite opposite to what most road racers and crit racers would do. So in the winter, I kind of start off my first block doing a VO2 block and kind of just raising the ceiling and working my way into some threshold work, which I just finished now. And once a threshold block's done, then I'll get into some sweet spot stuff. And along with all of these blocks, I always incorporate long rides on the weekends. So usually I'll have 2 interval days a week. Everything else is all just zone 1, zone 2 filler rides, and 2 long rides on the weekends. So usually I'll do those back to back. And I just find the 2 long rides back to back kind of really help build durability. And lately, with the threshold, and I'm going to do the same with the sweet spot, one of the long rides will actually be an interval ride. So doing those intervals at the end of a long ride. And so, yeah, once we finish off the sweet spot block, as we get into spring, I just really focus on pretty much just getting as much time as I can in the saddle. So tons of long zone 2 efforts, and we'll sprinkle in some tempo intervals in there. And every once in a while, we'll do a sweet spot or a VO2 workout every couple of weeks, just to kind of maintain the upper end, and really just trying to build those long rides on the weekends, prepping myself for those longer events, and just getting the time in the saddle, getting my body used to it, and figuring out what works fueling wise, and getting my stomach all prepared for that fun stuff.
Is there a reason why you put your interval at the end of your long rides?
I find last year so I did a little bit last year, and I found it really helped with just building that durability and being able to still have that strong power at the end of a ride, and being able to just maintain good power basically forever. And I thought I would just try it out again this year, and seemed to work really well for me last year. I know, like, for my first ultra race last summer, I really had no idea how to pace or what power I should hold for 20 hours, right? So I'm on the internet looking up, what percentage FTP should you hold for a 20-hour event, and people are saying 60%, 65%, and I think it really helped build that durability because I was really good at holding like a high aerobic power for long periods of time. And like I mentioned, the 800-kilometer ride I did, I think I held like 65% of FTP for 28 hours, and by the end of it, I still felt like I could have kept going or pushed a little harder. So I think just incorporating those on the long rides and doing it back to back, doing another long ride the next day with tired legs really helped build that durability.
It's something that I've learned this year with my first marathon, is that when you're doing long distance, the first time you're doing it, even though you have goals or anything, it's always new. It's a lesson. Mm-hmm. The first time you're doing 100K, you're learning. The first time you're doing 200Ks, it's a learning. The first time you do 800Ks, it's a learning. And after that, the fun is starting after that. Mm-hmm. Now you can set goals. Now you can say, I can try this and that, try something different. But the first time, just go for the fun and learn. So if ever you have big objective, big goals for your whatever sport you're doing season, they're like, I want to do a really long distance. Yeah, okay. Just do it for the fun and for the learning experience. At the end, choose if you want to do it again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how you learn, right? Going outside your comfort zone, and you'll never know unless you never do it. So, like, for instance, that race I did, like, I really learned what worked and what didn't work. Like, I had to change for the future my fueling a little bit so I didn't run into stomach issues. Up until that point, I had never ridden my bike for 20 hours. I think my longest training ride was around 14 hours going into it. And, even once you hit a certain point, if your bike fit's not like perfect, your body is going to let you know. And there was definitely some tweaks I was able to make just so, it was easier on the hands, easier on the lower back. And that second longer ride that I did do in the summer was just such more comfortable.
If ever you're starting cycling, we are talking about distance and hours on the bike since the beginning. But I did some biking when I was a teenager, when I was training for Boston. And then I stopped for like almost 5, 6, 7 years. I don't remember well. But the first time I went back on the saddle, after 20 minutes, I was like, oh my God, my butt hurts so much. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to bike again. And ride after ride after ride after ride, adding 20, 30 minutes. I just, end up doing now too much on the saddle. But like the first time, your body's going to adapt.
Yeah, like it all, if you stuck with it previously too, it all comes back super quick. And looking back, I remember when I first got my first road bike from my friend, doing a 20-minute ride was some of the harder things I've ever done at the time, and couldn't push any further or harder than that. And to now stick with it over the last 4 years, and be a lot stronger on the bike and doing a lot longer distances.
On your first ride, were you riding with shorts or a bib?
I was riding with shorts. I think I didn't get bibs until a few months in, but I I did ride with flat pedals for over a year before I got some clipless pedals. And man, I should have made that switch a lot sooner.
And have you ever fallen with your clips on? Like at the
a,
stop or?
a couple times, yeah. Not so much recently, but more just when I first got into clipless pedals, or those first couple of rides after the winter, when you're just used to sitting on your trainer and not going anywhere all winter.
It's part of the process to fall with
Yeah,
your clips on.
yeah,
It
it's a little embarrassing, but it happens.
happens to everyone. So when you know
Yeah.
that, even if you fail, you're like, okay, the guy or the girl behind me fell one day also. So my friend failed also. It's just part of the process. So nobody's judging you because you fell.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to have a laugh and we're going to
Yeah,
continue the ride after that.
it's happened to all of us, right?
Yeah. And how do you manage your well-being with all this training on your daily life?
I think it really comes down to listening to my body. Um, yeah, listening to the body, taking rest days when I'm, really tired, or making sure I'm taking it easy on a recovery week, or even just taking an easy day or a day off if I need a mental break from the bike. And the recovery weeks definitely really help with that as well. Definitely find by the end of that week, the body's itching for some volume and intensity, and making sure recovery goes as planned, getting lots of sleep, eating lots of food, and just making sure that I still do all the other things that I do enjoy. I'm just getting out for walks, and I like to read, spending time with family. So still, like, as much time as I put into the bike, I still have to make sure I balance it with other parts of my life, and making sure I'm doing other things that keep me happy as well.
Yeah, because when you want to do, I don't want to say great stuff, but if you have a really big objective, you need to put a lot of time in it. It can be the job, it can be the family, it can be sports. So at one point, you have to be. It must take a big part of your time to do all those things, but the rest week, when you have a break, you need to enjoy the other things. So during that part, you put down the time of biking to 10-20% of your life, but the other thing is full intense during those times. And do you find that to putting so much time in biking when the volume is needed, when you come back to the other things, do you find that you're more present during those activities?
Yeah, like I would say so, and I feel like maybe that's part of why I kind of liked the long rides and long efforts too on the bike, is because I kind of felt like it was almost like a therapy, and similar to how people say that, the runner's high. I feel like you get the same thing on the bike as well. And yeah, just staying active, and I think it's not just cycling, but whether it be running, swimming, hiking, going out for walks can kind of just ease the mind and let you be a little more in the present.
And are you scared of injuries?
Not really. I think I tend to be a lot more safe than sorry if I feel something coming on. So in the past, with reffing, I ended up reffing hockey. Ended up tearing my hip flexor slightly, and remember just jumping back into it way too soon, and ended up making it worse and hurt to walk for 4 or 6 months. And every time I feel a little bit of pain or a little niggle, I always look back and think to that moment and say, do I really want to push through this and set myself back even further? Um, so anytime I get any sort of pain or a little niggle or whatever it may be, I decide to either just end the workout or just, if it's a hard workout or an interval session, just keep it easy. And making sure I stay on top of mobility and flexibility, I find really helps with certain things as well on the bike. And just making sure that you're getting lots of sleep, fueling well, and I think all that kind of helps with recovery and not pushing your body too far, and just slowly increasing volume or intensity and getting your body really used to it and not pushing it over the edge where something does happen. But then again, like, not everything is avoidable. So just a few months ago in November, I ended up falling on the bike and broke my collarbone, and had to take some time off. And it was actually during my first training block towards these challenges, and took a few weeks off, and was sitting straight up on the trainer, just getting some low volume, easy rides in, whatever I could, until I was able to kind of hold myself up. But not all injuries are avoidable, but whatever you can do to help is best, I guess.
Yeah, and adapt to the situation. When you broke your collarbone, was it a... Yes, you said that you went on the bike to do easy run when you could, but when you don't have control about a situation like this, how do you keep your mental health straight with the situation?
Yeah, it's tough. I think during that point, I kind of really realized, how much of an outlet cycling was for me and my mental well-being, and just telling myself that, just taking the proper recovery, healing up, and I'll come back stronger, and just trying to keep busy with what I could, whether it be just sitting up straight on the trainer, doing some slow, easy rides, or getting out for a walk when it wasn't too sore. Just kind of keeping my mind occupied and doing lots of reading and just healing up the best I could.
And as you said, that cycling is a huge part of your, not stability, but as a you use it as a therapy, an outlet for yourself. For someone who is not an athlete, do you have any tips to anyone who's struggling with mental health that they are not, who are not an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to be an athlete to push yourself through physical pain to improve your mental well-being. I think, like, there's a few different things you can do, and just starting small. Like, starting is the key. If you don't start, you won't get anywhere, right? So starting small, even if it's small steps towards your mental being, whether it's going outside and going for a walk or going for a hike, taking a few minutes each day to take some deep breaths. I think one that's really helped me in the past is meditation, and starting with those small steps. I'd do a short meditation for 5 minutes a day and just staying consistent, and eventually built up to 15, 20 minutes. And over time, I really found that helped with just easing the mind, staying calm, and especially when you're brought on with outside stressors, make your mind stays a little more calm, and you don't let your emotions react, I guess, to the situation. And that's just for me personally. I can't speak for everyone. And I think it's just like the consistency over time, that leads up to doing better, and just finding something that you enjoy, something that gives you a little more purpose in life. I think reaching out, like I said earlier, I think a lot of people kind of hide it all inside and let it build up, and by time they let it out, it's often a little too late. So just reaching out, whether it be a friend, family, calling a crisis line. And from my past experience, I was that kind of person, and I think you'd be really shocked at how many people want to help you. And it's just a matter of just starting the conversation and talking. And I remember for me, myself, even just talking to someone about it, what was going on was just like a huge weight off of my shoulder. Just be kind to yourself as well. There's no rush to feeling better. Recovery for everyone looks different. And I think small steps is really the key. When people set goals and ambitions, they're often looking way up at the summit of the mountain. They're not looking at the little steps they got to take together. And just the small steps with consistency, I think, is really important.
There's one thing when I do the podcast in French that I try to, like, I'm not trying to say it to the listeners, but I always try to remember myself this point is that you're on Instagram, you see people doing full Ironmans, doing ultra. You're seeing Dylan on CTV going to Mexico and biking. But the thing is that pro athletes have training calendars of 4 years. The Olympic is coming up while we are recording, but the Olympic is going to be done after when the episode is going to come out. But like they're training on 4 years sections. So an Olympic calendar, the term we use. So they're training for the next Olympic. Always. But it's always 4 years. So if you're someone and you want to do an Ironman because you saw someone on Instagram doing Ironmans, the thing is that you might gonna have to train for 3-4 years before doing your first full Ironman, and it's okay. It's normal. If you can do it on your first year, maybe you're gonna get injured. Maybe you're gonna be feeling awful at the end or during, and you're gonna be sore for maybe a week or two. Or if you hurt yourself, you can be out for months if it's getting serious. So it's okay to say this summer I'm gonna do 3 sprint triathlon. It's okay. Next year you're gonna do Olympic, and the year after you're gonna do a full half Ironman, and then at the end, at the 4 years, you're gonna do your first full Ironman. It's okay. You're gonna be less injured. Your risk of injury is gonna be lower. You have way more fun. You're gonna see all the progress through the years, not just during one summer. So, as you said, sometimes we look at the really big peak of the mountain, but like there's a process going there. and it's okay to take small step to go to the peak.
And even just doing those smaller sprint tries, or even building up to Olympic before you take on a half or a full Ironman, you get the grasp of whether you enjoy it or not too. You might do all that training to find out, you don't enjoy doing a full Ironman. And no, I agree. It's a whole ton of work as well, especially a full, like, sure, I can bike 180K, but I could never imagine myself running a full marathon.
And like you said it earlier at the beginning of not at the beginning, but like 20 minutes ago, that you're Saturday and Sunday, you're on the bike like for 4, 5, 6 hours. So you need to love biking if you want to do things like that.
Yeah, and of course, and it's funny whenever anyone asks me what's my favorite interval session, I always say 1 times 6 hours. Nice, easy, long ride outside.
One long 6 hours. Oh crap! Or you can say 2 times 6 hours, one on Saturday, one on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
And
it's a lot of time to ride, but I like to get up nice and early and get out for the sunrise and get home by noon or a decent hour, so I still have the rest of the day to do things that also matter to me. So it definitely helps with time management. I found trying to cram all this training in and still getting everything else done that I need to do.
And before wrapping this episode, I would like to ask to you if there's listeners that want to contribute, not just by donating, but also spreading awareness and support in mental health, what they can do.
Yeah, so like there's lots of ways we can help support and share awareness. So one is on social media. So there's a lot of people promoting mental health awareness, and you being able to share their messages, reposting stuff is one way. Asking people how they're doing. A lot of people just say, "Oh, I'm fine," but asking how they really are, and maybe they'll have the capacity or feel comfortable talking to you and explaining what's really going on, and you just being there supporting them when they need it. Yeah, I would say those are the two big ones. Even just helping out with there's a lot of different mental health organizations, nonprofit organizations out there, and they're always looking for volunteers. So helping out with those sorts of organizations is another great cause and way to spread awareness as well.
If you want to help, there's places that need your help or people that need your help. So give out a hand, because maybe someday you're going to need one. And
exactly. Yeah, you never know, right?
You never know.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of brands out there as well that give back to mental health as well. So there's a company I've recently partnered with, Own Your Stigma, a clothing brand, and this is one of their shirts actually. But
it's written, "Be kind to your mind."
Be kind to your mind. But yeah, like not only do they spread awareness and a good message through their clothing, but they also donate funds from all of their sales towards different mental health associations and charities all around the world as well. So just supporting different brands as such, and it's another good way as well.
All right. I have one last question that I ask every guest on the show. What does it mean to you to be healthy?
To me, to be healthy, would be to be the best version of myself that I can. So doing things that improve my health, both mentally and physically. Making sure, I'm working towards staying fit, eating correctly, for the physical part. Mentally, I still like to meditate once in a while. Reading really calms the mind. And I think just anything that betters myself creates a better, healthier version of myself.
That's a great answer.
Thanks.
And if listeners want to find you on social media, find your campaign, where they can find Dylan and your cause?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. My handle is dpearce. And my campaign page is on GoFundMe. So the campaign is called Ride Beyond Limits. And it kind of just explains a little bit what we've talked about here today, my whole story, the different challenges I've taken on or going to be taking on, and why it means so much to me to raise money and mental health awareness through ultracycling. Those are the two big ones. Other than that, we've been featured on the Canadian Cycling magazine. So there's an article on there you can read about, or through CTV News online as well.
That's can type his name on Google, or you can write Barry Cycling crazy rider.
Yeah, if you Google search Dylan Pearce ultra cyclist, pretty much all of those will come up, so you'll be able to find me.
All right. Thank you so much, Dylan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
See you next time. Thank you to have listened to this episode of the show. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, leave a rating and review. It really does help. And for more content, please follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. See you next time.